Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Hermitcraft, peeps. I think I'm going clucking mad over here. Oh my days. The chickens! They're just so loud! Why do I need so many chickens, I hear you say? Because I'll do whatever the cluck I want, that's why. Okay, X, stop with the terrible jokes already. Here's the real reason why. The other day, I just woke up inspired. I had an idea for a Minecraft project. I wanted to build a chicken farm so OP that we could fill up shulker boxes full of feathers and cooked meat. And it's not like I need these things, I just thought it would be a really fun challenge. So we would have a chicken coop for thousands of chickens to occupy, and down below we'd have a hopper minecart going around to pick up the eggs that they would lay. And based on the amount of eggs it had inside of it, it would do laps over here to distribute those eggs into hatcheries down the front here where baby chickens can live and, eventually get cooked by the lava. This is actually some pretty cool, easy to understand redstone. If this has items in it, then it sends these over with a delay to change that rail at just the right point, which means the minecart is then going to do another lap. And if it's empty, it's not going to do that and it's going to continue picking up some eggs. But yes, that's how we distribute the eggs for cooking the chickens. Then their items would be picked up and dispensed into a water stream that could send them all the way up to something that probably looks rather familiar if you've seen my recent episodes. We have some classic item filters at the top here, and then we've got some shulker box loaders. It's all very straightforward and simple, right? And the end result is this ginormous, crazy looking contraption. But when I was finished, I started to think about how many chickens do we actually need to continuously fill up the hoppers here and get lots of baby chickens. And pretty quickly I realized that without doing any math, this was a flawed project. There were other mistakes too. For example, the hatcheries. We're now going to refer to these as hatcheries. The chickens can actually pathfind and jump upwards. If I just remove the lava there, you'll see there's a gap where the hopper is. The chickens can actually jump into that space, so they'll pathfind there and jump into the lava. So what you need in a setup like this is for the lava to be fully encased directly above the slab, but also you need a hopper minecart below. So if your hopper is directly underneath the slab, there will actually be items that can be destroyed in the lava when the baby chicken grows into an adult. Because the minecart hopper here sits on top of a rail, it's slightly elevated and it catches those items if they go into the lava. So I needed a new design, and once again I was working with Cybot, my partner in crime when it comes to redstone. And here is the first design we came up with, a taster of what you're going to see later on, but what preceded this was me doing a whole bunch of maths. And bear with me here, I know some of you are like, oh, maths is so boring, but trust me, this is interesting, and I've spent a fair bit of time making it so that I can communicate this effectively. You're going to understand all of the numbers, trust me. So how do we calculate how many chickens laying eggs that we need? Chickens lay eggs every 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. And a hopper moves 2.5 items a second. But let's say it moved 1 item a second, we would know we'd need exactly 300. So the math here is simple. Our 300 seconds for an egg multiplied by 2.5 equals 750. So the hopper transfer speed means it can support a maximum of 750 chickens. So now we need to figure out how many chickens hatch from the eggs. Because as you probably know, you don't get one every single time. And lucky for us, the wiki has the math on this, including the rare chance to get 4 chickens from a single egg. So from a stack of 16 eggs, you're likely to get 2.188. But we need to know how many for a single egg, so we just divide that number by 16. So every 5 minutes, 750 chickens laying an egg can give us 102 baby chickens. But wait, what about the max entity cramming game rule? Remember these flaws I showed you with our lava hatchery? Now, vines can override the max entity collision game rule, however, I don't think there's any way to incorporate them into a lava cooker. And that's mainly because we need our chickens to be on top of a slab. If we could get something to work with the vines, we wouldn't need multiple hatcheries. And so we have to calculate how many we need, as they can only support 24 chickens at a time. Otherwise, the baby chickens go squish and they don't drop anything at all. So we divide those 102 chickens that hatched from the eggs by 24, because that's the limit, and that means that we're going to need 4.27 hatcheries. But wait, there's more! You see, babies take 20 minutes to grow into an adult, in which time 4 eggs will be laid. So we need to multiply our hatcheries by 4 for those eggs that are laid in the time they need to take to grow up. That's 17.093, let's just round it down to 17. So now you know why this setup is so large. We have to keep the baby chickens alive, we can't have them dying in the hatcheries from max entity cramming. And the distribution of our eggs is throttled by these hoppers back here. It was at this point that I decided to do even more math, double check my calculations and sort of reverse engineer the numbers. This allowed me to determine that 43.75 egg-laying chickens are needed to fill up one hatchery. This number is much easier to work with. This means that for each hatchery we can just add 43 for the amount of chickens that we need in total. And this design was playing it on the safe side a little with only 15 hatcheries, so that means that we would need 645 chickens seeding it. But I wanted to play around with a more interesting distribution method and decided that we would use a minecart hopper. Now, a hopper minecart can pick up items really fast, which I think sort of compensates for the time it'll spend travelling around this circuit. And I'm really pleased with this setup. Because of the comparator and detector rail, we do some signal strength comparison. So when it's mostly full, that's when it will get sent on its way. So let's go ahead and push it into here. It loads up, the signal strength reaches its amount, and then it opens the trapdoor. Fence gate. It's a fence gate. And the rails here are just arranged so that it goes back in, and then it can come out again when it's filled back up. And this is when my buddy Cybot came up with an even better distribution method. So these hoppers will collect the eggs being laid. If this one has items inside of it, the rail at the front will be powered so it can send the incoming hopper minecart back out again, and this thing will pick up enough items to distribute to all of the hatcheries behind me. And the water here slowing the minecart down is a particularly nice feature, I think. But even better, this combination of detector rails and powered rails means that when the hopper minecart goes over, it activates the dispenser and also powers those unpowered rails. It does this once, coming out, and then does it again going back the other way, giving every one of these hatcheries 2 eggs. It is seriously cool, I like it. And like the last one, this also has 15 hatcheries, so that's 645 chickens that need to sit up the top here and seed it with eggs. And for that, we're going to take advantage of just having a twisted vine here, and that way we bypass the max entity cramming. So we're going to be able to constantly produce cooked chicken and feathers around the clock, and here it is on Hermitcraft, built and ready to go. Just like last time with the cow farm, I decided to pick a location that had nothing else nearby, so when we're loading all of these entities, it's not happening right next to someone else's base. Oh yeah, and goodness me, that is a lot of chickens. And this isn't too far away from the cow farm. This nether portal right here goes past Tango's ice farm portal, and it's in a nice and neat straight line leading to this branch of the nether hub, where of course last episode we built this to get to the cow farm. Right, I think that we're in need of a little bit of a break, and we will come back to the chicken madness later on, and yes, it will be madness. Right now though, we have a job to do which requires me visiting all of the various farms that we've built across the season. And we have indeed built a lot of farms, haven't we? So last episode we made a deal with Impulse to move into his shop iBuy, and now I need to stock it up with the many drops I've accumulated from my farms. My plan is to turn the floor in his shop into a bit of a catch-all for all the things that I've been farming en masse. So I've been going around the server, wrangling up supplies, getting ready for the mass amount of materials that we're going to sell. And we're going to do it in an interesting way with even more redstone. But before we do that, we need to visit all of our various farms, which I thought would be like a little bit of a recap of what we've done so far this season, and we've done a lot. So obviously we've built several skeleton farms throughout the season. And of course, we've also built like an actual skeleton. We're going to be selling those netherwoods from the warped wood farm. And we're going to be selling ice. And let me say, I love this project now that it's finished. It works 100% and I have AFK'd on it many times. And I almost broke my pickaxe at one point, so I decided to do a little test. And I figured out that around 20 minutes will give you 330 damage on your pick. And so with these numbers you can kind of suss out what you need if you're using a netherrack or a diamond pick. However, I came really close with mine. This thing came all the way down to 30 durability after running it for just over 2 hours. So gotta be super careful with that, and I've got boxes upon boxes of ice now, and I'm reminded at some point need to create a proper aesthetic for this area. And of course, this lumbering of items around is only possible thanks to our extraordinary supply of shulker shells from our recent shulker farm in the end dimension. We are also going to be selling shells at this place. Also found in the end dimension, we have our drowned copper farm that is just unbelievably insane. I think this stuff is still, yep, it's absolutely rammed full of copper. And all of this over here too. Oh goodness me, do you lot make a lot of noise. I absolutely loved using that farm, however, I really don't have any need to properly use it again. Oh yeah, remember this? We built a cornflower farm using allays, and I figured I should hook this place up with a portal for fast transport. And so now I've got a nether tunnel that I'll probably decorate on a stream sometime. Aha, and down here we have our witch farm and squid farm combo, which I recently renovated with some shulker box storage too, which has made all of this nice and convenient. Because all I had to do was just, reach in here and scoop out some shulker boxes. Not the same dealio for this place. I had to scoop all of the items out of these chests manually, which took a little bit of time. But the bigger concern here is that this farm is now broken. Not the raid farm, the one below me. This is our mob farm that used scaffolding, and in 1.19.4, mobs no longer spawn on scaffolding, so we no longer have like a general purpose mob farm. Okay, next up we head to the roof of the Nether. So, some time ago we built this fantastical frog lamp farm. Yes, I just splat into it, just for the camera. And nearby is our very recent bartering farm. And what you might notice here, my friends, is that I have made some big changes to the storage behind us and installed some shulker box loaders. These ones over here are spaced out because we get quite a lot of items coming through that they actually skip over the item filters when they get full. So to make sure we don't lose any items here, they have 2 filters each going into one loader. And the end result of that is a stupid amount of items that we're going to be selling. And I don't think there's too much else to say about this project. There's a couple of modifications I could still make if I feel like it to improve the facilities here. I got some junk to tidy up, but otherwise it's done. Oh, and ending where I started, I guess, we need to pick up glowing and slime balls. Wow, so much of this stuff coming through. Right, and next order of business, got to drop all of this stuff over at iBuy. So many trips back and forth, so many rockets used. But my friends, we're moving in, and we're actually going to be on floor number 4. We had originally been given floor number 3, and Impulse had taken the time to decorate it for me. I was very keen on moving in on here, but I also wanted to make use of some redstone. In fact, it's kind of similar to this floor selection system that we have here. So let's head up to floor number 4. And up here, you shall see a big empty space, but also inside of these barrels, just an extraordinary amount of stock right here. This is ridiculous. So I got inspired, and an idea came to mind, and unfortunately it would have meant really like tearing apart a lot of what Impulse built to make it fit in, because it's got some redstone components to it, which again, kind of similar to this system here with selecting a floor. So you might be thinking the idea just got buried in my subconscious, but actually it was the way in which the player interacts with the shop that I wanted to mess around with. I first came up with this design right here, where in order to open a shulker box and look at its contents, you'd have to make a selection. And we could put item frames with items around the outside here, or we could just have some signs that you can read and then look at and select. It's all pretty straightforward, and actually I struggled with the redstone here at first, so I took to YouTube to search for a video to help me and found my own one from like 8 years ago on how to create this bit of redstone right here, which I found rather amusing. So as I wrapped up on creating this, I happened to notice that the bottom side of the shulker box is something you don't see very often, and it's got an interesting pattern, and you can interact with it from this side. Now the principle with the pistons works in reverse, so I can't actually open these ones, but I can open the highlighted one. And that I think makes for a pretty unusual shop interface, or at least not one that I've seen before. So it's with this little module here attached to that original circuit you saw a moment ago that we can kind of do the same thing. It's really cool. And I didn't actually explain this. It's really awesome. You basically take the signal strength going out here and sort of invert it. So when it's lower here, it's higher on that side. And that means that there's always going to be like one spot that isn't lit. So if I just go over here, move this a couple of times, that changes the signal strength and moves it along. So at this level, if our selection is unpowered, then the piston isn't extended, but we invert that, send it upwards to turn the lamp on so we know which one we can actually open. Now from here I wanted to go a little further and ask ourselves if we could perhaps give an entire shulker box and then replace it like so. And when doing this I was placing it onto the dispenser, right? But the way that dispensers place shulker boxes means that they face upwards and you can't actually open these ones. But I was thinking about it, there was a potential experiment here we could try. Would it be that way around? Yeah, let's see what the dispenser does. Okay. No, it still places it upwards. If there's no block there, then it places it that way. I will have to have a head scratch and see if we could possibly modify this one to do that. But for now you understand the premise, and again you don't really need to open the box, but it will be made clear that with this system you're going to get a full shulker box of items, so you can make your selection, but you also then need to press a button. So there's more redstone going on here to give you that shulker box and then replace it. And things might look a bit more complex around the back here. They are, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to understand. We're first of all just moving the signal around to this circuit that shuffles along the unpowered redstone, and that's actually just been doubled up. So down at this level you can see that one of the repeaters isn't powered, yet the sticky piston is extended, and that's because there are torches down below extending them all, and we can actually send a signal down here to turn those off, which means the one that isn't powered will pull the sticky piston down. We send that signal by pressing this button. And when the sticky piston gets pulled down, the redstone here, the observer, will create a series of events that will remove the current shulker box and then replace it with another. So we've got these two different modules, and the question is now, like, how are we using them? Why are they different? For all the items we're selling, we're going to create 4 of this module where you'll be able to open up the chest and browse, and that's so that you can go in and take things like 1 stack at a time. But there is going to be 8 groups of items in which we sell them a box at a time, so that's why we need this secondary system. And so, due to the bulky nature of all of that redstone, I wouldn't be able to fit it in around the existing floor plan, so it just kind of made sense to come to a new floor, which I sorted out with Impulse, and that means that he can move in on floor number 3, as he's got plans for more shops too. So you've seen I've got a lot of work ahead of me to get this shop up and running, and before we do that, I want to get our chicken farm finished, that project, yes. I haven't forgotten about it. In fact, it's been on my mind. I've been really inspired because for the longest time on my channel, this was the most popular video, the automatic cooked chicken farm. Yeah, this whole project has been like a real throwback to the old school days of doing Minecraft, where I'd spend ages tinkering around in test worlds and coming up with fanciful contraptions, and it's just been lovely to do that again. So what about all of those chickens? I feel like most of them spend their time at the edge trying to escape, and the other ones are competing for space there. Anyway, this is temporary, just to collect eggs and fill up shulker boxes full of them. I had conducted an experiment to see how long it takes to get rid of all the eggs out of a shulker box with this clock right here, pointing into a dispenser. I know this is a dropper. Now, I'm not going to go deep on the math again, but it takes 3 minutes and 15 seconds, and we need 11 shulker boxes total to get 649 chickens. So I'm going to double check everything with this farm and then set that up to run just over there. We have our vine to stop entity cramming, and then a hopper down below to pick up the eggs, and yeah, you've seen all of this already. It's just now here ready to go on the Hermitcraft server. And if the collection system looks a little odd, that's because these chests are temporary. Eventually we're going to upgrade it with a proper sorting system that's going to put everything into shulker boxes. And if all of that is a success, well, this thing is deliberately modular, meaning that we can build a second module if I decide it doesn't pump out enough items fast enough. All this effort, for feather and cooked meat, which I don't even need. Well, actually, feathers is one of the things I would like to sell at the iBuy store. We're now going to be able to do that because, well, we've got a stupid amount of them, yes. Look at all of these drops. So let's jump to a little time lapse of me setting this up. You can see the chickens here kind of spinning around, and then there's this weird moment where all of a sudden they start to grow into adults. Those are of course the cedar chickens that lay eggs. And then here we can see the minecart whizzing back and forth and the chickens slowly filling up the hatcheries with the lava there. I did have a slight concern that something might be wrong with the math, and that if a new chicken were to pop in when we have more than 24, it would kill the very first one that entered there, and that might hamper the amount of drops that we get from this thing. But based on the timing of our first test, which filled up all of these shulker boxes, and the second one, which was a lot shorter, you see around the back here, I made a modification so that there would be slightly less eggs distributed, as basically each time this one does a lap, all of these will get one egg. And it's producing less drops as a result of that, so I think it was tuned fine the first time. And that means all that math that I did checked out, which I'm really happy about. And as for expanding this design with another module, well, I'm going to leave you with a teaser. We're actually going to abandon this design and do something totally wild and totally different in the next episode. But now though, I've got to take a trip over to iBuy to drop off these resources, and then I gotta get to work on taking our redstone contraptions, decorating them, building that floor. There is so much to do between this episode and the next, and I've got a feeling the next one's going to be a lot of fun too. I've really enjoyed this one. I hope you have as well. If you did, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I've got absolutely no idea why I'm flying in this direction. It is the wrong direction. That is not the way to iBuy. That's it. Take care everyone. Bye bye.